All right, welcome to SBS 335, Digital Anthropologies. This is my first lecture, and the aim of this presentation is twofold. First is going to be to give you an introduction to the reading for the first 4 modules. It's a reading that can otherwise be a little intimidating, but I'm hoping that some of the keys that I'm going to be presenting to you today will be enough to get you excited and get you in the right direction to engage in this reading. And the second motive for this lecture is going to be to present to you some of the issues that have to do with the mechanics of the course and what is it that I'm expecting from you every week. Since this is the first week and we have still some people coming in and getting some of the materials that we need for the course, I think we're going to just do some of the elements that you're going to be doing every week. So we're going to go easy on this initial week. But please know that the reading is going to be critical, that it is very important that you have your materials as soon as possible so that you can stay on top of things and on top of the readings. Let me get started first and foremost with the actual lecture on what's the topic at hand. And then when I'm done with this reading, you're going to find another link in another presentation with the actual mechanics of the course for the duration of not just this week, but for the duration of the semester. My aim in these online courses is to dispel this idea that online means distant, in the sense that we're not connecting. I want to connect, and I have all kinds of tools available to connect with you. Precisely one of the issues that we're going to be exploring is the extent to which this binary world of ones and zeros that we're living in today are less or more real than the world that we're actually engaging on our everyday life. One of the things that anthropology has discovered and actually represented quite well is the fact that every single interaction that humans have is framed in systems of mediation. So even if it feels like what we're doing today, it's a little artificial, in reality is no different from framing our interaction, say, at the university. So it's exactly the same. Think of it. So we have the illusion that actual real interactions are real because we have a physical proximity, but the physical proximity nonetheless is very, it can be very conceptual at all different levels. And you know very well as I do that you can have quite close relationships in the digital world that we live in. So let's explore these interesting concepts and get on with the main concepts of this course. So digital anthropology. One of the things, probably the basic tenet of the entire course, is going to be that the faster the change we experience in our cultural settings, the more strange and complicated the new environments are, the more relevant the task of anthropologists and the more relevant anthropologists become. And this is not to be arrogant or to present to you anthropology as the best of all disciplines. No, it's just that the nature of anthropology, its methodology, its perspectives, its holistic approach, holistic meaning that we tend to explore the human condition and the human experience from the most different angles, because we understand that the human experience is complicated and multi-layered. Because we're used to that in anthropology. It seems like we are fast to accommodate to those changes. So that's what we're sort of presenting here, and the authors are supporting in this book. Few disciplines seem to be better equipped to actually immerse themselves in the process by which a digital culture becomes normative culture. A digital culture becomes a normative culture. That is, a world that is foreign and strange becomes our norm. Um, think of Google Maps. Google Maps is a fairly recent invention. The original iteration of it was called Keyhole, and it was a program to represent spatial geographical information. Google got it and started playing with it, and eventually they managed to present a reality in terms that we can more or less naturally relate to, and now it's second nature to actually go get direction on a GPS to go from one place to another. Uh, the strange, the foreign, the sophisticated become the norm. And so now, if you have a car, people can tell you, how come your car doesn't have a GPS? Because it's becoming the norm. All of the gadgets that we use on our everyday life, as sophisticated as they are, we take them and we normalize them. We convert them into our everyday life. And we've been doing this from Paleolithical times, and that's who we are. That's our nature. So that process is what we're interested in when we do digital anthropology. It's not the things that are out there. It's not the websites. It's not the gadgets. It is the processes by which we humans interact and normalize those gadgets to have them be part of our landscape. We remain as humans as before the digital era, but we have embraced that new technology, and that has become our norm. And that's what we're fascinated with, and that's what this is all about. This course, your exploration of anything that you might be interested in exploring this semester, is about understanding the process by which we make of that new technological space a normal space. In other words, part of a normative culture. And that's what we want to understand, because that's what helps us understanding what's on our nature. So just like any other field of anthropology or subfield of anthropology, political anthropology, economic anthropology, we are going to approach digital anthropology as a new subfield. That's another opportunity for us to explore and better understand our very own nature. So the reading that I'm presenting, that I'm asking you to engaging with this week, is you're going to start reading the book that it's called Digital Anthropology. And I want you to start by reading that introduction. The introduction is, by the way, the book has it's actually an array of different authors, and it's a compilation of different authors and works. The book was compiled and edited by Heather Hurst and Daniel Miller, but you have a number of different authors that are exploring different aspects of the digital life that we live in. I really like this book as an introduction to what we need to get our hands on, because it has not just different aspects being explored, but it actually has people that are doing research on this that is the leading edge and of anthropology. So for this initial week, you're going to have to be reading the introduction of the book for me, and today I'm going to be giving you some keys to understand the introduction, which, by the way, will give you keys to understand the actual book. So, like any other book of anthropology, this book, the main concern of this book is to understand what is the relationship between certain aspects of human life and the humans. In this case, what is the relationship between the digital and the human? The digital and the human. we will be engaging in finding a definition of what is the digital. But this digital realm that we're talking about and that you're intuitively aware of should and can be a highly effective means for reflecting upon what it means to be human, as I was explaining a few minutes ago. So we have a sense that by understanding this relationship between us and the new digital realm, we will better understand what it is like to be a human. We will be better equipped to explain who we are. And this is, as you will know, the ultimate task of anthropology. Anthropology as a discipline, it's about understanding the human experience, and this is the new frontier, the new space where we're living in as humans. The book will explore, and the introduction explains 6 principles for the study of this digital realm. So let's explore some of these principles. The first principle is that the digital itself intensifies the dialectical nature of culture. It's kind of heavy, so let's explore this. The digital itself intensifies the dialectical nature of culture. So for starters, what the authors are proposing is that culture remains basically the same. We haven't changed. We're no different from humans in the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s. Your parents, your grandparents, their culture is just as sophisticated, intricate, and complex as yours. But the technology that we have today, if anything, has helped intensify what's the nature of culture is that dialectical nature of culture. If the word dialectics or dialectics doesn't ring a bell, let me just remind you, it goes back to Plato, and dialectics means a bidirectional relationship that generates understandings, meanings, conditions. So when we have a dialectical relationship, is that you and I are similarly affected and affected by what we both are doing. And culture is about this interaction. And interactionism, for example, is all about this interaction. And we have a clear sense in anthropology of the importance of this binary dialectical relationship and nature of culture. So what has changed today is that the digital is now a part of this cultural framework in which we live. And the digital provides those opportunities, therefore, to anthropology to understand what it is to be human. So let's start by covering the basics. So what is the digital? When the authors talk about the digital, and when we talk about what is the digital, this is what we're going to be referring to in this course. We refer to everything that has been developed by or can be reduced to the binary. That is, bits consisting of zeros and ones, much like this screen that you are reading and the voice that you're listening right now. That is the realm that we're talking about when we talk about the digital. It can be presented to you by means of different tools. It can be a computer screen, it can be a TV screen, it can be a tablet, it can be a phone, it can be a number of things. But what we're looking for is that what defines here, the digital is that we're talking about anything and everything that has been developed by or can be reduced to the binary, that is zeros and ones. Think of it, this is kind of impressive because there's a lot of it out there. The binary coding that enabled computing to happen was a stroke of genius that was actually really in the making from the beginning of mathematical times, but then in recent times, with developments that are related to what happens in Europe in the First and the Second World War, computing becomes more and more important, and for positive and negative reasons. And then these systems of zeros and ones to generate complex communication systems became a norm and created the basis for what we know today as the computer world, or what we're going to be calling here the digital. So the binary code radically simplified information and communication. Much like money, the binary code generated new opportunities of abstraction. And I want to explain this because this is something that might sound a little strange to you. But think of it, before money, the way we exchange goods and we trade with other human beings and started creating networks that enabled us as species to be sustainable and successful. We were basically bartering and trading one kind of good for another kind of wood for stones, or hives for cereals. But with money, this exchange became easier and more complex, and distance was for the first time something that could be averted, and that could be let's say that could be negated as a factor that would stop it from exchanging. So in medieval times, for example, where you have the famous Templars, they developed this idea that, okay, I have a house in Italy and I have another house in Great Britain. So if you give me your goods that you want to exchange in Italy, and that is worth X value, I can later on give you that value in Great Britain, and then you can use that I'm going to give you as a token of the value of your hives, so that you can exchange that for other stuff in Great Britain. You don't have to carry your money, your valuables with you across Europe. So now you have someone to rely upon to do that. And so they wrote a little piece of paper, a note, which was a token. And that token was the initial concept of money. It's an I owe you and I will pay you. But it becomes a conceptual abstraction that enables for the creation of much more sophisticated networks of trade and exchange. And then the story tells what has happened with the world, right? Because of money. Ones and zeros come, and how many of you carry money with you every day? Maybe you might carry a few dollars, but you never carry as much money as you spend, because now we have plastics, and the plastic is nothing but ones and zeros. So money is no longer that physical token, a piece of paper or a piece of gold that we agreed that was going to be worth something that we can all agree with, but we don't even need that physical element, because now we have ones and zeros. So we are at a different level of abstraction, much more sophisticated than before. Ones and zeros allows for the commoditization or commodification, as well as for the decommodification or decommoditization. In other words, music, for example. Music, if you wanted to hear Beethoven in Europe back in the days, in the 18th century, you have to be wealthy and you have to live in Europe to listen to Beethoven, or you have to live in a place where you can actually attend these very exclusive concerts. But today, hey, listen, I can play Beethoven to you right now. I don't even know how to read music, but I can play Beethoven for you. That's very easy. Quite amazing, right? Think of it. Think of what it means that we can actually reach for those places, and then a commodity that was exclusive for the few now becomes something that we all can have. How many of us, if we were living in a different age and era, would be able to listen to Beethoven? I'm pretty sure that I would not. And maybe occasionally, maybe once in my life, and that would be the day of my life. But not everybody. So in a way, ones and zeros are allowing for the material culture that we live in to multiply in ways that we couldn't have before. And that's a substantial, amazing change. But also ones and zeros complicate our lives and complicates things enormously. Think, for example, of the gender roles in the creation of the open source community that we have nearby in Cupertino and the hills of San Francisco and whatnot. Why are there so few women among these members of this community? By the same token, if you take a look at some of the social networks that are out there, they are created by these gurus of computing, and then they are transformed by simple people. Like Filipino mothers in Europe really transformed the use of polymedia, that is Skype and those kinds of communication means, because they wanted to use that to remain mothers. As they were working far and away from their homes, they wanted to remain relevant and vibrant for their children back in the Philippines. So they used a network that was intended for something different, and then they transformed that. And I can give you multiple examples of that. So this just goes to explain the immense complexity that ones and zeros have brought to our world. And that is what the book is all about, helping us understanding this complexity and tackle this complexity. So let's explore those 6 principles of that I was mentioning before, those principles of the study of the digital, right? So I want to go to the second principle. And the second principle is that what is the meaning of authentic? In other words, to what extent this conversation you and I are having is more or less authentic than you listening to me in the classroom when I'm preaching and giving you my lecture. How is this lecture that you're listening today different and or less authentic than the lecture that I will be giving you in the classroom? You might want to say, well, I can ask a question, I can stop you. Well, in many different ways, we will be able to replicate those patterns that we had before. But my communication with you and what I'm going to be listening from you is no less authentic and real. So, as they're saying, people are no less or more mediated by the rise of digital technology. We were mediated before. Like my role in the classroom hasn't changed. And so we're mediated by those parameters of interaction. So the technology is another element in that mediation that was already there. So one of the things that the book is asking you to consider is that it is important to erode that illusion that the world that we lived before the digital era was a non-mediated one, because it was very mediated. The world continues to be just as mediated, because at the end of the day, this screen that you're seeing, or the screen of your phone, is just another framework, no different than the frameworks that we had when I was lecturing to you in a classroom. The classroom was the big telephone that I was using to communicate with you, and that was existing there for a reason. So technology was there before, it's just it's different, the kind of technology that we're using today. So think for a moment, is this less or more authentic, or similarly authentic? A third principle that is important to consider And if you've taken my classes of anthropology, you know that one of the characteristics of anthropology is that it's a holistic discipline. And when we say holistic, we say that we explore any phenomenon on its multiple layers of complexity. And we take from geographers, we take from psychologists, we take from physicists to try to explain why do we do the things that we do. Well, it's no different in the exploration of the digital realm. Can the digital realm be studied applying the principle of holism? I would say not only can it be, but it cannot be without applying such a principle. So the anthropological perspective shall retain interest in life as lived and all the mess of relevant factors or layers that I was mentioning that help explain it. A fourth principle that remains, that's been present in anthropology and in cultural anthropology for decades now, is cultural relativism. Cultural relativism, it just goes to show that there are multiple positions and that all those multiple positions are to be understood on their own accord and from their own principles if we are to understand them. Doesn't mean you have to convert, but it means that if you want to understand it, you have to look at it from within and provide value to those parameters that explain that experience. So the digital space is based on the global nature of our encounter with it, and here's the thing: the digital is not only homogenizing. It is happening, but it's not only doing that. But contrary to that, we have plenty of evidence that the digital is making it more plural. So it's one of the contradictions that we have to grapple with. So think for a moment, because that's going to be explained in the introduction of the book. So yeah, there are forces within the digital that will tend to homogenize people. You have lots of people walking like zombies in the streets looking for Pokemons, right? It doesn't matter where, Spain, Japan, and all engage in the same behavior. But at the same time, the meaning and the experience is fundamentally different. And also the digital creates different perspectives and it allows peripheral views to be relevant and to be heard as they were never before. And that's an very important element that gets me excited of thinking on the digital. So the peripheral voices are just as relevant as the main principal voices of ever. The fifth principle is that essential ambiguity that I was referring to when I say that there are forces of hegemony and homogenization, and at the same time voices of plurality. So because this is a realm that it's filled with ambiguity and the contradictions. It is a closed and it is an open system. So the sixth principle is that the digital world, this image that you're seeing, my voice that you're hearing, even though I recorded the voice before you heard that my voice is just similarly real. What you're listening now is what I meant for you to hear when I was recording this. And this voice is material, and the digital world is material. So it's no less material than an old 11th century church in Europe, and it is not less material than a desk that you sit at when you're going to class. Humanity, and this is the most important aspect explored by digital anthropology, has a remarkable capacity to reimpose normativity to new environments. So this is simply a new environment, and we are normalizing it and using it. The use that I'm making of Camtasia and Prezi and a computer and my voice is a use that has been normalized by my understanding of what is teaching. just as it is normalized by your understanding of what it is to be a student. So we use those parameters and we normalize the technology and we transform the technology into what we are and what we want this to be. And that normativization is what we have fascination for and the aim of this entire course. So back to what I was saying at the beginning, the faster the trajectory of cultural change, then the more relevant are anthropologists. Few disciplines are better equipped than anthropology to immerse itself in the process by which digital culture becomes normative culture and to understand what this tells us about being human. So that's the exploration, that's the challenge for this semester. We're going to have, I think, a vibrant, interesting opportunity to explore different aspects of the web. The web is vast and some aspect mysterious and some aspect pretty casual and nonsensical. But it is complex and certainly a fascinating field to explore by you and by me. So I invite you to engage in the reading and to enjoy this semester. And as I said at the beginning, I will be explaining what are we going to be doing this week and the challenge ahead. Thank you very much. Enough of these 20 minutes that became 31. My apologies for the length.